Dust off your toasters, folks, because it's football season. Grossi Posse Packer Nation, welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you're not a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, and today what we're going to take a look at on the first day of training camp for the 2019-2020 season is the top 5 players we'll be watching, or to watch, in training camp this year. Now, before we get to that, 2 announcements. One, the first of the 2 fantasy football leagues that I will be running this year is already full, and there is only 10 spots left in the second one. So if you would like to join that for this coming season, head on over to patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. It's going to be a lot of fun, but again, there are only 10 more spots, so I cannot guarantee entry after that. It's gonna be first come, first serve. And back by popular demand, this shirt is available. The link is once again for shipping. If you would like a Packcast shirt to start your season off right, check out the link down in the description below. Now let's jump into it. Now, these 5 players, I've selected them for a bunch of different reasons, and obviously there are going to be some people that we are going to want to keep our eyes on, and I feel like there's a lot of competition this year in a bunch of different areas, right? There's the tight end competition, which I don't have mentioned here, right? So you have Jimmy Graham, you have Jay Sternberger, you have Big Bob Tonyan, you have Mercedes Lewis, you have a number of tight ends. I don't see us keeping 4 of them, but you have that. We also obviously have some races at cornerback. We also have some linebacker issues potentially if some of the guys that we drafted or some of the wide receivers that we picked up in undrafted free agency, maybe they can wind up contributing to the team. So there's a lot of competition, a lot of races, a lot of storylines to take a look at. But these 5 people I think are going to be some of the most interesting to watch. And let's start off with number 5, and that is good old DeSean Kaiser. Now, I'm not watching DeSean Kaiser because I think he's good. It's going to be very interesting to see if he actually makes the team this year. His limited play last year went 20 for 42, 187 yards, 2 interceptions, and also 4 sacks. And then you also had the man, the myth, the legend, Tim Boyle, who was straight up killing it last year, when he had his limited playing time in the preseason, and plus he's just a fun story. But DeSean Kaiser, obviously, we traded for him from Demarius Randall from the Browns. The Packers were very high on him, and he really didn't impress last year. And if there was one position that I wanted the Packers to go get a veteran presence for, it would be the quarterback position. I mean, there's a reason why, obviously, Nick Foles is getting a ton of money now in Jacksonville, but it pays a lot to pay your backup quarterback because, for example, not last year, but the previous year, the NFC Championship game was literally between 2 backup quarterbacks with the Eagles and the Vikings. And so we still have a bunch of competition to go with DeSean Kaiser. We obviously have Tim Boyle. They also brought in Manny Wilkins, so who knows if the Packers are going to keep 3 quarterbacks again this year. I was pretty shocked when they did it last year, but this is going to be one of the more interesting competitions, that this is the second year for DeSean Kaiser. Is he going to be able to step up into that backup role? I mean, Kaiser has come out and said that he doesn't want necessarily the backup role. Like, he wants to become a full-fledged quarterback. He wants to be a starting quarterback, and that's the kind of mindset that you want. But we just need to see that production, and I'm very curious on how much wiggle room LaFleur is going to give Kaiser, considering he's left over of the Mike McCarthy regime. Is he going to stick with him, or is he going to have no problems cutting him and be like, listen, let's cut our losses, which it already seems like Gutekunst has no problem doing that, considering we've already gotten rid of Mike Daniels, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, etc. And so if DeSean Kaiser doesn't impress in camp and preseason, I would be very shocked if he winds up making the 53-man roster. Number 4. Originally, I had Montravius Adams in this position, and I'm really looking forward to him potentially taking that sophomore leap, and now obviously getting rid of Mike Daniels, he's going to have opportunities to be an impact player. But I actually replaced him because I think there is a more compelling player here, and one that I really just want to do well, and of course that is cornerback Kevin King. Now, our cornerback position used to be one of our weakest, and now there are fewer question marks. I don't want to say like far less, but there are fewer question marks. We obviously still have Tramon Williams, but as I said when we signed him, he is just a Band-Aid. He is not a permanent solution to that. But we had Jair Alexander, who played amazingly well last year. We also have Josh Jackson, who struggled last year, but hopefully can pick up his play and make that sophomore jump. And so Kevin King is going into his 3rd year, and when he plays, he's good. He helps that backfield, that secondary tremendously. But in the past 2 years, right, he's only played 15 games. And he's had 1 interception, he's had 7 passes defended, 35 solo tackles. But again, the problem with him is that he's not healthy. There's the Kevin King watch that is constantly going on, is, okay, what is ailing Kevin King today? And so this is going to be kind of a make it or break it year for Kevin King, considering we do have some guys that are rising up on the depth chart. Even if he's kept as a rotational player, the problem is there's going to become a point where he's just not healthy enough to play football on a consistent basis, or that is going to warrant a contract extension. And so I think this is going to be the year that Kevin King needs to really perform well, but more importantly, he needs to stay healthy. Number 3, another guy coming into his 2nd year, and that is a man that I am personally rooting for, and that is Oren Burks. I loved him coming out of college, and the problem is again, he was dealing with injuries last year. He only started 4 games. He played in 14 of them, though, had 18 solo tackles, 24 combined. And so the reason why I am really focusing on this is because we need an inside linebacker, and that this will come up momentarily again, but this is a position of need. This is why we wanted to potentially go in the 1st round for an inside linebacker, but we wound up not doing that and getting Rashawn Gary. And so when it comes to Oren Burks, he really needs to impress, because he kind of just flopped a little bit last year. And obviously, they had some injury issues, and I think that with Pettin's offense, obviously it is just his 2nd year, but I am looking for him to impress because, one, personally I'm rooting for him, but this is a position of need, and I would say probably on the defense right now, I would argue probably our weakest position is inside linebacker. And obviously, we have guys like Blake Martinez who can play middle linebacker, and potentially Josh Jones who can come in, which we'll talk about momentarily. But I really want to see something from Oren Burks that impresses me, and more importantly, impresses the front office. Number 2, that's the guy who we've already done a video on and just mentioned, and that is Josh Jones. Josh Jones, a guy who requested to be traded a couple months ago, and we talked about him, and I flat out said, listen, like, if he doesn't want to be here, then bye. And he came out last year and he was complaining about the lack of opportunities that he was getting. And he participated in practice today, got a little bit of an injury, but he participated. But more importantly, he played inside linebacker. So we took him out of that strong safety position and we put him at inside linebacker, which he does have some experience with in his 1st season. And so he really wasn't great when he did play. He was a rotational player last year. He started 12 games in the last 2 seasons, and he only had 2 passes defended, 40 solo tackles, and so 1 sack. And I think that the rumors coming out, or the stories coming out of like having a bad attitude, of, kind of being a locker room problem, no one wants him when it comes to trading. If we couldn't trade Mike Daniels, I don't think we could trade Josh Jones. Someone might take a flyer on him and pay him like no money just to see if it pans out. Josh Jones, if he can contribute at the inside linebacker position, I think that would be great, because that solves both problems, right? It's our weakest position, in my opinion, on our defense. And 2, he would get more playing time and be able to make the most of his opportunities. But it's going to be very interesting to see if he makes it out of training camp. It's going to see how he performs, because I feel like Matt LaFleur is going to, and Gutekunst are just not going to put up with a player who doesn't want to be there, especially if they're obviously not playing well. And then finally, the number 1. And again, a lot of guys could take these spots here, but there's one guy who I am rooting for above all of these people, and it's at a position where there's a lot of competition, and that is Geronimo Allison. If there's anyone who is going to have a great year this year, in my opinion, it is going to be Geronimo Allison. Coming into his 4th year, he was playing great last year before he got injured. He only played in 5 games, only started in 4. But in just that short amount of time, he was targeted 30 times. He had 20 receptions. He had over 300 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. And the reason why I think he's going to do so well, and a lot of people are looking at MVS. They're looking at Scantling, and rightfully so. He started off doing really well last year and then kind of pittered out by the end of the season. But whoever lines up opposite Davante Adams, and I mentioned this with Cheesehead TV during the Madden thing, is going to have a great year. Because you have Davante, who is going to be pulling a lot of double coverage. And so this is obviously why we want like Jimmy Graham to do well, but can't all get what we want. And so I think Geronimo Allison, considering he has that rapport with Rodgers, he's been there a while, because all of Rodgers' favorite targets besides Adams are gone. You don't have Cobb anymore. You don't have Jordy anymore. And I can see Geronimo Allison slipping into that into that position. And he needs to, because when you have guys like MVS, you have EQ, you have Jamon Moore if he can learn how to find his hands, you have Jay Kumaro, you have other guys that we have picked up of undrafted free agency and brought in. There's a ton of competition when it comes to the wide receiver position. And I think Geronimo Allison, and this is for fantasy too, I think if you can get him late in your fantasy league, he is the guy to target. I feel like he is going to have a great preseason, but more importantly, I think he's going to have a great season. But it all starts with him having a good camp, because there's so much position and there's a lot of youth at that position that we have. I think the one thing that Allison has in his favor is he does have that experience with Aaron Rodgers, even if that hasn't translated so much to the stat sheet, but he needs to remain healthy, and I think he could be a phenomenal player and a impact player on this Packers team. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do you have a different list? What players are you looking for at training camp? And of course, we'll be talking to some training camp as stories come out throughout these next few weeks. But let me know what you think down below. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all social media. See down below. And also, for the past few years, you have asked for it, and today I have delivered unto thee. Podcast is now on Spotify, so if you want to listen to this prepubescent voice because YouTube is just not enough, and you maybe want to be driving your car or on a ski lift, and you're like, man, I really wish I had a very pale white man speaking sweet Packer nothings into my ear. You're welcome, world. So you can check us out on Spotify. Also, again, we will be doing another limited run for the next couple weeks of the Packcast shirt. If you want to pick up one of those, the link in the description down below. And of course, to join the Fantasy Football League, head over on patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. Only 10 spots left, and they will be filling up very quickly. But thank you so much for watching. I am Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go.